we're live. Let me see. Ooh. Okay.
Yep, it's happening. It's happening.
Okay, but do you, it's not.
I think you're online right now.
We are online. Okay.
Do you want me to do an intro? Just let me know. All right, I think I see video. I see people saying, I see you. Welcome, everybody. 1 hour late. We'll just pretend we're in a different time zone. I do want to pass it off to our incredible guest artists, Leanna and Daniel Crows at a Crosswalk. They have been serenading us in the background and keeping our anxieties low. And after we give them a few minutes to play, we will give you all an update for the timing for the event, and we will get our program running. So without further ado, please welcome our guest artists, Crows at a Crosswalk.
Sorry, Em, I would like a further ado. Do you know if I'm going to be playing for 10 minutes here?
If you could do maybe 3 to 5, that would be great. And Una will cue you to wrap it up.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, you guys. We've been just having like a private concert for the past 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. Time doesn't exist in quarantine. So, but yeah, we've been having a blast already. Let's do some more.
I have ideas left.
Always.
Okay, let's see where we go. No trouble.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Leanna Keith. This is Daniel Husser. We are Crows at a Crosswalk, a all improv group, and we just played some improv for you and also for before you guys came onto the stream. So welcome. We're your guest artists tonight, and I'm going to read off the script. So I'm going to bring it to my face for the 11th Sustainability Leadership Awards. You can learn more about us and support our work with the link in the chat box. Welcome to the campfire. This evening, you will hear from people who showed us that this year, in spite of disasters slow and fast, we are able to create abundance through vision, determination, and collective strength. Now, I'd like to introduce M. Piro and Jamila Williams.
Tonight, we invite you to connect with others and with the leader that lives within. To quote the late movement leader and philosopher Grace Lee Boggs, we are the leaders we've been looking for. Each of us are vital in this work.
In this spirit of leadership, we will hear stories from this year's leadership honorees. In part one of our program, we focus on stories that cultivate culture and community, featuring honorees in our culture and environment and aligning forces categories. In part two, we focus on stories that use data as a tool to strengthen our democracy, featuring honorees in our deep democracy and community access and data categories. In addition, we will also express gratitude and honor other leaders throughout our program who have and continue to inspire our work at Sustainable Seattle. All of these amazing organizations need your support, so keep an eye on the chat for links to their work and donation pages. We also ask that you give generously to Sustainable Seattle this evening. Let's manifest abundance together.
Proceeds from this evening will benefit Sustainable Seattle's 2021 programs. Next year, we will accelerate grassroots solutions to the climate crisis and align key players in this movement through a community summit and our ongoing think tanks and sustainability labs. Your giving will build Sustainable Seattle's endurance as we work for lasting sustainability, equity, and resilience in Seattle and the Coast Salish Puget Sound region. You can support us tonight in 3 ways.
Visit the S2 Community Winter Market, an alternative to an auction where you will find eco-friendly products, art, and experiences.
Become a member.
Join us for Marshmallow Games tonight. Throughout the evening, use this link to donate your pledges to the Marshmallow Games. We'll see the games in action at the end of this evening.
Hi, I'm Una. I'll be Chubby Bunny. Every $25 is one of these marshmallows that goes in my mouth. At $100, I'll say a phrase of your choice. $200, bunny ears. $1,000, Shakespeare.
I'm Damaris and I'm playing Chompy Bunny. For every $25 that we raise, I'll add another mini marshmallow to my teeth. For $100, I'll record a phrase and send you the video. If we raise $1,000 in my game, I'll floss my bunny teeth.
Hello everybody! Here's one of the challenges. Every $25 you'll get one marshmallow to put into the mask. Then the challenge is to draw. And this is the result that we can get. If you donate $100, you will get one of these mailed to your home, and you get to choose what it is that I will be drawing. A little bit of an abstract result. Thank you.
We'll check in on the games throughout the night.
We invite your generosity
Your open heart.
and your strongest self this evening.
We acknowledge that today we are gathered on and will spend the next hour discussing unceded land, indigenous land belonging to the Coast Salish peoples. Please take a moment to make a contribution to the Duwamish peoples, the tribe on whose land Seattle sits, and who remain unrecognized by the United States government. In addition to this acknowledgement, we own that we have much to do in learning, understanding, and carrying out the original instructions cultivated by Coast Salish nations and peoples who governed this land sustainably for more than 12,000 years, and who continue to model and advocate for sustainable practices today. These nations include, but are not limited to, the Duwamish, Suquamish, Nisqually, Snoqualmie, Muckleshoot, Yakima, and Lummi tribes and nations. We are young in this process as organization and as individuals. We acknowledge the complex, contested, and unjust history of both occupation and governance in this region. We also want to bring gratitude and thanks to those in this room of a Coast Salish nation for sharing this space with us and joining today's gathering. We also want to express acknowledgement that many complex personal pathways landed this particular group in a shared space today, including people who are indigenous to other lands, and that we enter this space with an array of statuses, rankings, and privileges. We invite every member of this gathering, especially those who benefit from power and rank privilege, to hold awareness of your roles and to be intentional in distributing space and power. We express gratitude for being in this space, on this land, and sharing time and space with this group today.
Since the earliest human settlements, the campfire has been a source of life, of light, of safety, a deep elemental bond between human and nature. We'll take a moment now, while apart, to come together. Take a deep breath in and out. Place yourself at the campfire. When you breathe in, what do you smell? The musk of earth, the sweetness of leaves. Each and every one of our ancestors trusted the campfire for nourishment. Breathe in. What do you hear? The rustle of branches, the crackle of fire? Just as we are doing today, future generations will share stories about lessons learned and their vision for the future. Breathe in and out. What do you feel? The warmth of the fire on your face, the chill of the crisp night air on your back. The campfire is the source of human culture, of community. It's time for our first campfire stories of the evening.
We begin with stories grounded by culture and community. Stories about those boldly leading us to a new normal, where culture and environment are intimately linked. Stories like the one shared at Wanawari, a place of refuge where one can find nourishment, fresh food, and a community of change makers, elders, youth, neighbors, and artists celebrating Black ownership, possibility, and belonging. Carol Roshana Williams' stories shine with hope and healing through murals and installations that intertwine racial justice, environmental health, and a vision for a new and abundant Seattle. The many stories shared through the Yehao Show have evolved into a collective of Indigenous creatives nurturing deep relationships between and with Indigenous nations. Tonight, we highlight the story of a group who transformed our city's landscape forever and for the better, turning public space into communal centers for Black and Indigenous people to reclaim land. Blackstar Farmers, tell us your story.
Our mission as Blackstar Farmers is to be Black and Indigenous-led for the radical reclamation of land and food sovereignty for Black, Indigenous people of color.
Through education, conversation, and volunteerism in a safe, joyful, and intentional community.
We aim to challenge the white supremacist narrative surrounding agriculture and food security
by creating transformative Black and Indigenous-led farms.
We envision BSF becoming a Black and Indigenous urban farming cooperative
that provides organic produce, plants, and traditional medicines to their communities.
At times, the forces that divide us can seem insurmountable. The pressures of extractive capitalism, state-sanctioned violence, and deep systemic oppression. We see another way, a path of enlightenment and a path of alignment, where many come together to nurture visions for a more just and equitable city into reality. Alignment can be seen in our artists, like Simon Okello, who brings lessons of nature and art from his native Kenya to African and African-American communities in Seattle, and Louis Gong, who bridges ancestral knowledge and Indigenous wisdom at 8th generation. Alignment can also be seen in the community building work of Juntos Podemos Cuidar Nuestro Rio Duwamish, a South Park group that shares lessons and leadership, or those of Pomelo, an organization that strengthens community through food and land stewardship. Alignment is also about creating pathways for communal support and giving, like that of Intentionalist, whose platform makes investing in small, local, minority-owned businesses the natural and clear choice. And if you're lucky, you're able to witness alignment in a way that is bold, that is uplifting, and unapologetic. King County Equity Now, as my son comes into the room, because he's also a fan, is reclaiming and transforming. You want to read this with me, honey?
Mom, I want an ice cream bar.
And you'll get that, honey. You want to listen to me do this?
I already ate dinner.
Well, you want to read this with me? And then we'll share one.
I want to get some ice cream, okay?
So in a moment, I'm going to get ice cream. But first, I just want to introduce King County Equity Now, who's reclaiming and transforming land ownership in ways that amplify and prioritize Black leadership and voices. Because until Black people and communities are free, none of us will be free. King County Equity Now represents a movement rooted in equity and liberation in response to forced displacement and social and cultural erasure. They are showing us how collective power can not only inspire, but move people into just action. Today, Triana Holiday from King County Equity Now. Tell us your story.
Hi, everybody. I'm Triana Holiday. I work with King County Equity Now, and I got to tell you, I'm just elated for us to be honored for our work and for the collaborative nature of our work. So the origin story for King County Equity Now really resides in those relationships. We talk about having a relational approach, not being transactional in our communities. And so much of that stems from the relationships that have been built in community over time. When you're talking about different graduating classes of Garfield High students coming together to then become leaders of institutional organizations in their communities. And then those organizations come together to say, wait a minute, there are specific demands that if we just pull our energies, if we just work together, we can actually see them come through to fruition. And that really is the birth of King County Equity Now. It was because the relationships already existed for folks to say, we all agree that these are some of the biggest things we can ask for the city right now and get. Not only that, but these demands are centered around so much work over decades from so many individuals and organizations and institutions that if we ground ourselves in that history, we're bound to see change by focusing together on the energies that are needed to push through for change. So in this collaborative nature, you have people that are on the streets, you have people that are in city council, you have people that are, in between, that are working with the people on creating these sustainable solutions. And King County Equity Now said, look, we need to uplift all of that work. We need to showcase to the rest of Washington, the rest of the region, the rest of the nation, and the rest of the world that here in Seattle, we have a unique nature of connectivity that's going to allow us to really lead and guide the nation on changing these systems, on dismantling them in a way that is sustainable and building them up in a way that is equitable. When I think about what it takes for us to be resilient in this work, I'm actually elated because so much of it is built there in those relationships. It's built in the resilience that we understand we have real experts on the ground that have been doing this work, that continue to do this work, that bring others in and educate the next generation so they can become the leaders of all of these amazing institutions that really make up the King County Equity Now coalition. How do we continue? How do we ensure that young folks who graduate college outside of Washington, that they want to return back right here to their hometown to bring their brilliance into this soil and build up the next generation that's right here in their backyard? So many of my amazing friends left Seattle. And I think that we understand through this coalition style, through the collectivity of people power, that we can bring our brilliance back to something that is saying, we need you, we want you, we desire you to be here. When I think about the resilience, I literally rest on the shoulders of my elders. They guide me and they feed me, not only me, but others in this coalition. It takes us to have an intergenerational approach so that not only are our elders cared for and honored, but that they understand that their wisdom and guidance plays a major key into how we build and how we move and the things that we take with us on a daily basis when we are working to dismantle these systems that unfortunately have not embedded equity in them at all. We also, again, bring in the youth to be part of all of this, not just in an engaging way, but also in an educational way, so that they can understand how all of these facets work together to bring about the whole. Resilience comes from the reminder that we have community that we can go like this with, because we're plugged in with them like that. We can't represent them if we're not connected to them. So we realize and recognize wholeheartedly the beautiful nature of what all of our community brings to the table. There's something to be said for people's lived experience and how it infuses the work, informs the work, and guides the work. And that's something that for me and for King County Equity Now, we take very seriously. Again, it goes back to our origin of being in community together, growing up alongside so many of our leaders of all of these amazing organizations who are doing the work on the ground. Now, we as an organization get to uplift all of that. We get to showcase it. We get to spotlight it. We get to give it a narrative that is absorbed and respected by so many of you. So again, thank you for recognizing King County Equity Now, recognizing me, recognizing our work, recognizing all of the effort that it really takes to bring about sustainable change. It isn't something that happens in one generation. It's definitely something that's going to be sustained over time because we take an intergenerational approach, because we do bring in all of the people who are really affected by these statistics and the numbers that we see flashing across our screens all the time. It's really about people. That's where the resilience comes from. And the relationships really is the foundation of what we do. Thank you for honoring us. We are humbled. We are truly honored. And we are engaged and fired up to continue in our mission. Equity for all. Thanks, you guys.
Drop them in the chat box if you haven't already. We have a system for this. We'll see if it works, but please don't be shy. Drop in those questions. To get us started, first, I'm so continually inspired by both of your organizations. It's just, really moving to see how, you both work. I am wondering, because for both of your organizations, it's very much based on the collective and using this communal approach to organizing and transformation work. I kind of liken it to an ecosystem approach, one that involves the varied and different parts that together make a whole. Triana, I feel like, you captured it really nicely in your video. I'm wondering, why did each of your organizations choose this particular approach?
That's a great question. Marcus, do you want to go first?
I was going to ask you.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll go. I think we were birthed in the middle of the George Floyd protests. We were birthed in CHOP. Very much, it was a collective from the beginning. Like, I think a lot of people have given a lot of ownership, or even, I've received a lot of, focus through Blackstar Farmers, but in no way could Blackstar Farmers have happened without everyone that was involved that showed up to build that garden. People that I don't even know, and then the group of people who make up our group today all showed up within like that day, kind of build the garden. And we recognized then that, there's no way, too many times in these movements, we've seen focal figures get taken down, or, get overstressed, or, just not really build up the people that they're working with. So we just want to create a very, even, horizontal, non-hierarchical system in which everyone has the ability to lead and to help everyone else out. So, we're just about, flat systems. We're trying to create a system that doesn't fully exist, and it's hard to have a flat, hierarchy. Consensus is really difficult, but we're working through all those things as we grow as an organization.
Yeah, Marcus, I think you definitely uplift some points that I think are felt in a wide variety of these kinds of partnerships and these kinds of collaborations. For King County Equity Now, it really was at the heart of, relationships. Like I was saying in the video, I think so much of it is really resounding when you have so many people in the community that are working toward Black liberation. And I love, Eloise, how you said ecosystem, because that's exactly how we see this. We see it as an ecosystem, and every piece has to play their part, right? We can't only be thinking about land and housing. We also have to be thinking about education, health and wellness, incarceration, the criminal justice system. We have to be thinking about all of the facets that have really affected Black equity, so that we can work on real solutions to change that and transform a lot of the systems that are in place. So we definitely see ourselves as an ecosystem. And again, I think having that relational approach is something that's a thorough line for us as we bring on more folks in the community with our research projects and something like participatory budgeting, right? Which is still so new for us in terms of like largely being able to affect our communities, right, with direct investment. And so I see so much of our approach as relational and collaborative, because that is what is required of us now in this moment. I agree with Marcus. You can't have one leader or one organization. It really is about all of us coming together to really bring about sustainable change.
I love it. I'm uplifted just being and sharing in this virtual space with both of you. In seeing and being able to, to observe how both of your organizations work, I am reminded of, the amazing movements in our history. The civil rights movement, the third world strikes, this sort of the surge of people coming together to build something new, to build something better, right? That really resonates with those most impacted, by these different and intersectional oppressions. I'm curious how, the movements that we're seeing now, right, that you both, your organizations are both clearly a part of, how is it different from Black liberation movements of the past? And are there lessons that help shape the work that you're doing now?
I'll start out. We're just picking up the torch, man. I feel like, the script, we're kind of got a script going for this. The script has always been the same for Black liberation. I think you go back and you read W.B. Du Bois, you back and look at Fannie Lou Hamer, you look at Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and where they were dreaming for our future. And, some of the tactics, some of the plans that they had just weren't a reality at their time because of where they were, like what was happening politically, socially, environmentally at that moment. It was too difficult to achieve some of their goals. But I think everything we've ever thought of has been thought of. And we're just looking at that blueprint and be like, all right, where can we pick up? How can we make, Martin Luther King? How can we start the Poor People's Campaign? How can we evolve what you did? And not even evolve, but just learn and recognize that the moment right now is different. We have an opportunity to open up the doors in a way that we couldn't before. So that's what we're here to do. And yeah, I'm sure Triana can go off on this as well, so I'll leave the rest to her.
Well, you know it, Marcus. I mean, this is definitely part of the motto. It's part of our modicum, I believe, when we think about the Sinkofa method. And forgive me, because I'm now like, what did I say in the video? I know in the background we can't hear it again. So I want to make sure I'm trying to touch other points. But really, there's a lot of things that are foundational for us in this work. And the Sinkofa method is one where we are looking back to understand how we move forward. And I think when you think about movements like this, you know, we are going after something that doesn't necessarily exist right now. It's been very much idealized, right? And I think a lot of people in this country thought it was already there with Barack Obama and LeBron James and Jay-Z, right? Whatever. But ultimately, I said all those names and no Black women. So let me throw in Viola Davis, Beyonce, you know, Issa Rae. Let me just do that to balance it out. But I do think that when we talk about understanding the work of the past, it really is important right now, specifically, if we really want to see this happen, if we really want to kind of realize the American dream together, I think we do ourselves a disservice if we're not learning from the past. As we know, those past movements have somehow got dismantled. They killed the leader off. It, you know, all dissolved. We see now there's a movie coming out about Fred Hampton, Black Panther Party, so we can understand there's even people within the ranks that sometimes have their own personal agendas or intentions and can then bring down your whole organization or your whole movement. So we really have to be vigilant and I think diligent in ensuring that we don't allow that to happen again and ensuring that we learn from the lessons of the past. Otherwise, we can find ourselves very much in those same ditches that other movements have unfortunately fell in the past.
I just got a reminder that we have about 1 minute left. See, we can keep going. This is just, you know, I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface. But we did get a question from one of our viewers. Jordan asked, what are your most exciting initiatives for 2021? And I know 2021, you know, things are ramping up for this very interesting legislative session. Some people say it's about defense, but some people are saying, well, you know, the time is now to push, right? So I'm curious, you know, what it is that you folks are prepping for 2021.
You know, I support KCN on everything they're doing. I'm actually one of their researchers. So I'm going to let Triana just give us it all because they're doing so many amazing things. And, you know, I just want her to take that minute. So go.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm so glad we're already in team together. But I will say you're right, Eloise, that there is a wide variety of things happening and moving for 2021. You named it, continuing to push. When we think about some of the early wins that we saw in Seattle City Council, you know, being able to see a decrease in Seattle police funding, those are great things, right? I mean, we saw people dancing in the street celebrating the Biden Harris win. But what I will say is that we cannot stop this movement. It is very clear that if we get content and we say, oh, this is great, you know, we got Fire Station 6 where, you know, oh, ACLT is getting Cairo. It looks like when we start thinking that we've done the work and the work is done, that's when we fail. So I think that you're right in terms of the continuing to press mode for all of us. It's the energy that's there to really see some real shifts. And I think that's what we're beginning to see. And so not only that, but ensuring that our communities are now well-resourced, as Marcus said, as part of this research. How do we bring those voices into all of this decision-making? How do we ensure that our coalition members, right, all of the organizations that are a part of King County Equity Now, that they understand how to utilize us as a new tool of research, policy, advocacy, and amplification? These are things that are really important to us as we shape 2021. Because remember, King County Equity Now started almost like a burst of energy from all of those relationships and then all of the volunteers coming in. This was so organic. And I think, Marcus, you're absolutely right. Both of our movements grew so organically. And ultimately, we have to make sure that we can continue this work in 2021.
Thank you so much, Triana. And thank you so much, Marcus, for all the wisdom and the innovation and just, the power that you bring and the work of your organizations. So Triana and Marcus will be back at the end, closer to the end of our program, where we'll be breaking out into Zoom groups, which may or may not happen depending on time, but but Em will let us know what the plan is. But for now, we want to invite you to take a brief breather, go ahead and fill your cup if you haven't already. And if you haven't, please visit our winter market and make your pledges to Marshmallow Games, because that'll be exciting. We had a run through of it earlier and it was hilarious. And I'd like to welcome back Crows at a Crosswalk.
Hey guys. Oh my goodness, what an incredible discussion. My cup is filled from this conversation with Marcus and Triana. I'm so inspired. We don't have a whole lot of time, so let's make some noise. Little jams. Yeah, we can get going if we're not paying attention. So anyway, thank you for listening to just listening to us do that stuff. That was whatever we just did. Again, we're Crows at a Crosswalk. If you want to support us, there are links and things that you can go and look at. So Before we return to Campfire Stories, I'd like to take a moment to thank the people who made this event possible. On the board, Seattle City Light, Conservation Northwest, and many others. I'd also like to remind you again about the Community Winter Market, where you can support sustainable Seattle while getting wonderful eco-friendly items, gifts, arts, and experiences. Check it out. I also want to remind you to pledge to Marshmallow Games. I've got a pledge token and I'm going to put it towards Chubby Bunny. So I'd love to see what happens with that pledge early, pledge often.
When I give to Sustainable Seattle,
I'm giving to community, like the neighborhood group with a vision for healing who started their first CSA this year with the help of Sustainable Seattle.
I'm giving to education and knowledge where everyone will have access to what it means to be sustainable.
I'm giving to an organization where everyone has a place to shape their own vision of sustainability and make it come true.
all of this and much more is what I'm giving to when I give to Sustainable Seattle.
The tree canopy coverage in Hillman City, the salmon who pass through the river every 2 years, the place you always think of when asked, where would you go in a crisis? These are all data points. Data can illuminate stories and support our deepest intuitions. Data holds tremendous power, and when accessible to communities, that power is palpable and fierce. Abigail Echo Hawk, as director of the Urban Indian Health Institute, has worked with over 100 tribal nations to bring national attention to the unacceptable rate of missing and murdered Indigenous women, especially here in Washington, in efforts to decolonize data and to better serve communities of American Indian and Alaska Native people. First-gen scientist Ashley DeMora Powell comes from a long line of innovators and place-based organizers. Their passion for marine justice, traditional ecological knowledge, socio-ecological ecosystems, and pollinators engage a wide community into their work at Public Lab. The Equitable Development Initiative, housed in the City of Seattle Office of Urban Planning, has spent the past 4 years doing extensive database inventory around equitable development projects and initiatives, and extensive community involved and participatory processes. For someone like Kamal Patel, the fusing of accessibility, community, and data is second nature. Kamal has been a vocal champion for an integrated approach to data gathering, combining the just transition framework with the principles for a circular economy through public participation, discussion, and mapping events. Kamal engages the community person by person around design thinking for systems level change. Kamal, tell us your story.
Do 1, 2, 3, go, and I'll hit it when you say go.
Perfect. All right, you ready? 1,
Yep.
2, 3, go.
Okay. Welcome, Kamal. My first question for you today is, how did you get here?
Thanks for having me here first. I think I've been working on this idea of something that I have words for now, this idea of a regenerative economy for the last 15-ish years. Originally what I was saying back in the day was I want to use the internet to build democracy, which I think a lot of people probably said um, you know, in opposition to like the unsustainability of the world, you know, like, and so fast forward to today, most people who had this dream of like using the internet to build democracy realize like, wow, we are not using the internet to build democracy. We're using the internet to destroy democracy. And that's really sad. But there's a lot of people who are doing the regenerative version, you know, and that are looking to like, you know, build cooperation and build, you know, human decency and, you know, so that's, I think, the work that I'm looking to do.
So this is a bit of an origin story question. So what's your history coming into this?
Mm-hmm.
How were you specifically taught to gain and share knowledge? And how are some ways that you've learned to?
Yeah, I think, you know, went to school in America and had a, you know, pretty kind of cookie cutter education, but I never really took to school. And I was also really depressed in my childhood and didn't have really good ability to like clearly think. So that was something I experienced really young for quite a long time. And I don't think it was till way later in life when I kind of got into meditation and learned about systems thinking that I realized that the world is just complex and there's ways to try to make sense of it and simplify things to, as much as you can, like, you know, meditation, like, you know, simplifying your attention, and also using mapping as a way to complexity of the world and how things interrelate. So I think that the learning how to do mapping really learned how to make sense of the world and then share that with other people to see if my sense was correct. So yeah, that's a skill I think I've been building.
So if you could make a map of the sustainable future, like the sustainable future that you in particular envision, what kind of data would you include? So like if you could hand out like a pamphlet, you know, you're like, this is it. This is where we're headed. This is where I want to go. Right. What can you imagine as some of the templates on there?
I think that one, like my vision doesn't really matter unless it's shared, you know? And so I think that's why I like frameworks like just transition or circular economy or donut economics, is because it allows for a future vision or like a goal to be visualized and shared amongst like many people. So I think that, yeah, I would love to show the overlaps of those frameworks, you know, and like just transition says like this is what a regenerative economy looks like. It's like based on, you know, deep democracy or you know, cooperativism and things like that. So I would love to see who's doing that work in that space, you know, and who are they connected to and who are they not connected to, and what funding dollars are they getting or not getting. Yeah.
Like when that's taken away, when identity sovereignty is taken away through data, through sort of manipulation, what happens to our ability to engage with like sustainability, to engage with like sustainable thinking or sustainable action? Do you think there's a correlation? Do you think there's a relationship there?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, Tristan Harris's concept of extractive attention economies versus regenerative, you know? And if you use my data to trick me into buying into all the extractive stuff that's going on, that's really just destroying the planet and making me numb to it. It's literally using my data to trick me. You know, it's like mining my own brain for ways to trick me. It's literally what's happening.
It's like the opposite of therapy. You know what I mean? It's like in therapy you go in and try to figure out how your brain works to like help yourself, and this is like the opposite. It's like goes into your brain to figure out how to make it the worst possible outcome.
And they make money that, and that the systems make that's the business model, literally based on that. It's based on us getting engaged and getting angry and getting, you know, arguing and fighting and doing all these things to keep us online. That's why, I get talk about Tristan Harris so much, is because we need he talks about a regenerative way of using attention, right? Is like, how do we get people to think about things that are more relationship building and more, based on, lowering our energy usage and like the sustainable kind of approach to using data. It's the same idea, it's just aimed at a different thing.
Feel free to elaborate on it or not, but if there's one thing you could say to young Kamal who's having doubts about this line of work, what would you say?
It's still a hard question. That there's a lot more like me and you out there, and we just have to find each other and work together. I think that's probably what I would say.
Well, I hope this helps you find more people. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your words.
Yona, appreciate it.
Like the land we inhabit, the roots of our democracy far predate our current government system. The peoples of the Iroquois Confederacy, also known as the Six Nations, practice participatory democracy since time immemorial, with a deep accountability to the people and the land. We continue to look to these lessons as we champion a practice of deep democracy that prioritizes people, not profit, restoration, not degradation, and transformation, not trends. Organizations like Puget Sound Sage model deep democracy for us. By activating community knowledge to shape policy and government, the vibrancy of democracy comes to life with Got Green, whose organizing, art, and community-based research connects the experiential knowledge of communities on the South End with policy change in Olympia. As Six Nations also showed us, we all come together for the common good. Front and centered coalesces groups across the state for intersectional solutions and policies that prioritize communities of color and low-income people. When we use our intrinsic and collective power, the possibilities are profound. Rosalinda Gillen spent her youth as a farm worker in the fields of Skagit County, and now, alongside farm workers and rural communities, is transforming our state with equitable and sustainable agricultural practices and policies. The Coast Salish nations also continue to teach us the depth of democracy. Paul Chiokton, Wagner of the Saanich First Nations, spoke as a child to City Hall about the health of our water and the dangers of toxins like fluoride. Today, the protectors of the Salish Sea are leaders in direct action to divest from fossil fuels in our region. This year, one group practiced deep democracy and sparked an entire city's call for justice and sustainability. They took to the streets, all the way to City Hall. They examined the city budget, pressured the council and mayor's office, and demonstrated a civic mindedness that continues to push forward today. To announce this group, we welcome neighbor, community organizer, and now Seattle City Council member, Tammy Morales.
And please stand by for Tammy's video. This is one of the things that broke with our tech issues earlier, but it should be up on your screen shortly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Seattle City Council member Tammy Morales. Before coming to City Hall, I spent many years as a community organizer, working hard to help people understand how important it is to engage with elected officials so that you can demand the kind of change you want to see in your community. I believe following the voices of community leaders like you is really important. You're the folks who are calling for racial justice, for climate action, and for livability in your city. This is what deep democracy looks like. And that's why it's a special honor for me today to announce that this year's Sustainability Leadership Award for Deep Democracy is you, the community. This year, you took to the streets to demand change. You showed up at City Hall to hold your leaders accountable. You made your vision for sustainable, just, and livable Seattle known by your active and ongoing contributions to the city budget process. Each and every one of us is key to enacting change in the world. Whether you're taking action to reclaim land and cultural space and cultural traditions, aligning a coalition to call for police reform and structural change, or building data sets to shape more equitable and responsible industry standards. You have the power to make change in your communities, in your industry, and in your government, and in your own homes. So congratulations to you, our community, and keep it up. We still have a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Councilmember Morales. As Councilmember Morales said, you are the fourth sustainability leader for 2020. This evening has been all about celebrating and sharing stories that nurture the leaders within each of us. And now that we have activated your leadership, and now that you've been with us through so much this evening and this year, it's time now for your story. Your stories will lead us into the year ahead. Now, to do this, we have prepared an S2 think tank using the principles of deep democracy. Deep democracy centers you as a whole person and empowers your wisdom and experiences as integral to the decision-making process at all levels: personal, local, national, global. This also happens to be a shout out to Kamal and exercise and community data collection. These think tanks are how ideas become relationships that move people into action. Now, I'm also going to take this as a moment to give a little update since our program has started delayed. We are planning to go through till 8:15. We are so grateful to everyone who has stuck with us past our original end time, and we invite you to stay with us a bit more. What we're going to be moving into next is a group activity that we would like for you to join us with, every single one of you who are watching this now. We're going to start out in YouTube. It'll be crystal clear. You'll see exactly what you need to do. And then we're going to transition together, and we would love for every single one of you to join us into Zoom. And in Zoom, we'll have an opportunity for interactivity. For us to be able to speak with one another, with our honorees, and to really dive deep into this work together. After that, we're going to close out the night with our marshmallow games. We've been seeing those pledges come in throughout the evening, and you definitely want to see what you've been pledging towards. So thank you so much for going along this journey with us, and I'd like to begin with our first step. So, step one of our think tank. I invite you to think personally, think immediately, think about what is standing between you and a sustainable life today. This might be related to the natural environment. That's the health of our landscape, access to green coverage, things like that. Might be related to the resources that we use and generate in our day-to-day lives, our industries, and as a municipality. Could be related to our economy. What types of jobs are available? What is the need for a safe and abundant society? Think about our physical community and interpersonal health and wellness. Think about policy and governance. What's on the table? What's got to shift? Now, what I want to invite you to do is write down up to 3 things. Just as I've been inviting these thoughts, what's coming up for you? Write them down, 1 sentence for each thing. And the next step is you're going to boil that sentence down to 1 to 2 words. And those words are going to be entered into a link that we are going to pop up, and I think pop into the chat, into a Menti. And I'm going to trust that our tech director has the link. It's coming up shortly. So while that's coming up, again, what is standing between you and a sustainable life today? What top 3 priorities does this bring up? And boil that down to 1 to 2 words. And I see the Menti link in the chat. Pop your 1 to 2 words into that link. So click the link in the chat. You're going to enter in your top 3 most resonant sustainability impacts, sustainability priorities. This is what's coming up for you in your life. Think personally. This is where our richest data sets are going to come from your experience that you are living with in your day-to-day. All of this will be anonymous. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And as you are, it looks like we need a code for the Menti. But we may not. So go ahead, if you are able to access the Menti, we're starting to see your priorities up here on the screen. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. We can talk you through them. Beautiful. So keep reflecting. These are the image you're seeing on the screen is your words live. The words of everyone who's watching this as a community. These will continue generating while I guide you through the next step. So for our next step, we are going to be moving into our community think tanks. And these are for literally every experience level, whether you are a climate scientist or a housemate attending just because I asked you to, you are essential in this work. Remember, we are here to practice deep democracy. Your wisdom is integral to this exercise and to this practice. Thank you for what you've shared so far. And the time has come for us to shift over to Zoom. So you've been watching us, we've been chatting through the chat box on YouTube, but now is a chance for us to connect face to face, voice to voice. This moment of community is what Sustainable Seattle is all about. Our honorees will join us in this space as well, as much as they can. And you will have an opportunity to chat with Kamal, with Triana, with Marcus, and with others from the community in Zoom. So now is our moment to migrate. And we're going to see more. Feel free to keep filling out your words. They're going to continue populating through the rest of this exercise. Excuse me. Excuse me. This YouTube page, as we transition, is going to become static, but Damaris, who's been facilitating us all evening, will be here in the chat to help you if you have any issues or questions accessing the Zoom. So I'd like you to imagine getting up from our campfire after we've safely extinguished it. We're going for a short walk, maybe to see a meteor shower, and that meteor shower for now is inside a Zoom call. So click the link and follow me there.